Hey, how's it going guys? This is Dave 2D and this is my review of the ASUS GL752. So this is their mid-tier, mid-priced 17-inch gaming laptop. It's from their ROG line, so their Republic of Gamers line, and it's new for 2015. It's not replacing a 2014 model or anything. It's got Skylake, it's got a bunch of cool features. Let's take a look. It comes in a big red box with a handle, and inside you get the laptop itself, some pamphlets, some accessories like a cable tie and a cleaning cloth, and the AC adapter. The top surface of the laptop is aluminum. It actually comes in a plastic version, but this one's aluminum and it feels pretty nice, and it doesn't show fingerprints readily. There's a pretty large ASUS logo up front, as well as an ROG logo, and this lights up from the backlighting of the screen, so the brightness of the screen affects the brightness of the logo. The bottom of the laptop is plastic, and this obviously feels way less premium, but it's very rigid and it's durable. There's also a subwoofer up top, but we'll get into that later, and there's 4 rubber feet here, which are for grip. There's a hatch here that you can open up when you remove a couple screws, and then when you do, you have access to 2 memory slots and the hard drive, which you can easily upgrade. There's also an area for a second drive, and this would be for the M2 PCIe stick, so you can put in some really fast drives in here. So if you're doing video editing or if you're recording some gameplay footage, having a second drive here is nice. But if you don't need a secondary drive, you can always put in a caramel bar. No, I'm kidding. It should be a crispy crunch. Okay, so the screen has some flex. It's not any more than I'd expect, and actually for a screen this wide, I kind of expected it to be more flexible, so it's not bad. And the chassis is solid. The whole keyboard area doesn't have much flex, and the hinge also feels well made. It's covered with a piece of plastic, but it feels strong. Going around the sides, on the left side you get the power connection, a huge exhaust vent, mini display port, HDMI port, an Ethernet jack, a USB 3, and lastly a USB 3.1 Type-C port. On the right side we have a headphone jack, a microphone jack, a pair of USB 2 ports, and a DVD drive. Okay, so the configuration I'm reviewing has a Skylake Quad i7 running at 2.6 GHz, a 17.3-inch 1080p screen, a GTX 960M with 2 gigs of video RAM, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and a 1TB hard drive. And all of this is going for around $1,000 US. It's a pretty large laptop. It actually doesn't fit any of the bags that I have. You really need like a dedicated 17-inch laptop bag or a laptop sleeve to hold this thing. Opening it up, the palm rest is a really smooth plastic material, and it shows fingerprints and smudges a little more than I'd like. The keyboard is okay. I mean, I've used several keyboards with this kind of layout, like the UX501, the G501, and the MSI PE60, so I've gotten used to this kind of split, but if you're new to this kind of layout, it's a little disorienting first. That whole number pad thing shifts everything over to the left. So if you've never used one before, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. And the arrow keys can feel a little weird because it's surrounded so tightly by other keys, but typing on it isn't bad. It's got 1.8 millimeters of travel, which feels good, and the 3-stage backlighting is bright, but it's red, so if red isn't your thing, you won't love it. The trackpad is okay. It actually feels a lot like the trackpad on the UX and the G501, and it can skip around once in a while when you're tracking, but the texture is nice and the buttons are responsive. It's not the best trackpad, but it is a gaming laptop, so you'll often have a mouse connected to it anyways. The screen is a 17.3-inch IPS non-touch panel with a resolution of 1920 by 1080. The viewing angles are okay, and it's not a particularly bright panel, but the color range is really good. Thankfully, it's a matte screen, so you don't have to deal with too many crazy reflections. And it's a solid screen for the price of the laptop, but if you need really good color accuracy for photo or video editing, I would highly recommend calibrating it. But if you just plan on using this laptop for games, you're good to go right out of the box. The webcam up top is a 720p camera. The image quality isn't particularly good and the colors feel a little washed out, but it works if you need one. The drive that this model comes with is a 7200 RPM 1TB hard drive, and I was actually pleased with the performance. So if you edit videos, you don't want to use this drive, you want to grab an external or use the M2 socket. But 1080p edits are smooth and 4K edits are pretty good. You just need a 4K monitor to see the extra pixels. But the drive that it comes with is not bad for just like regular use for gaming and just regular stuff. So speaking of which, games run well on the 960M. Games like Counter-Strike Go, you're just gonna rip through them. You're rarely gonna see it drop below 100 frames per second with everything maxed out on 1080p. Slightly more demanding games like HOT. So if I put this on extreme graphics, so everything's turned up here, Laning will still be like 70, 80 frames per second, but a full team fight can drop this to under 40 frames per second. So if you're competitive and you play this stuff for serious business, play on high graphics, because even really messy team fights will still get around 55, maybe 60 frames per second on team fights. Remember, these numbers are for team fight numbers. If you're solo laning, it can be easily double these numbers, but I don't care about those numbers. I'm talking about where it matters for team fights. So Fallout 4 plays nicely on this laptop. You can get around 50, 60 frames per second on medium graphics, but bumping it up to high drops us to 35, 40 frames per second. So the sweet spot is definitely on medium setting for Fallout 4. Rust is even more demanding. It's actually one of the most demanding games that I play, and you have to drop your graphics setting to simple to get around 50, 60 frames per second. It's doable and the game still looks alright, but you lose a lot of the detail. The speakers are up on the keyboard area and they sound really good. The sound is clear, it's directed right at you, and it can get pretty loud. Obviously it's not as good as an external speaker, but they're nice. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought the whole subwoofer thing on the bottom was a little gimmicky, but it's actually really cool. Like, you can definitely hear and feel lower frequencies, at least much more than the average notebook. The fan noise of the system is reasonably quiet. It's about 25, 26 decibels at idle, like most of that noise is coming from the mechanical drive, and it's around 35 decibels under load. Thermals are also respectable. It doesn't go much above 100 degrees when it's under load. It's a 120 watt charger, and charging up the battery takes less than 2 hours. Now, battery life is really poor. So this laptop has powerful components in there with the GTX 960, and there's a big screen to light up, but it only has a 48 watt hour battery, which is really small for a 17-inch laptop. So battery life on normal use was around 2.5 hours. And this is just like regular use, using the web, doing a little bit of work, and playing games was under an hour. Now, most of the problem here lies in the fact that there's a DVD drive. I mean, it's cool to have an optical drive, but it really eats up precious real estate inside that laptop. So ASUS was kind of forced to put in a smaller battery, and this is what you get. Okay, let's do a recap. ASUS GL752, decent build quality with a mix of aluminum and plastic. The 1080p screen isn't that bright, and it needs calibration if you want to do any kind of color accurate work, but it's nice and big for games. The keyboard is comfortable to type on once you get used to the whole shifted layout, and the trackpad is okay. It wouldn't be bad if it didn't skip around, but it skips around. And on the inside, we have a speedy Skylake i7 and a GTX 960M that handles most games really well and video editing, a DVD drive that takes up a lot of space, 16 gigs of RAM that you can upgrade to 32 gigs, an upgradable 1TB SATA hard drive, an M2 slot that you can put a drive into, and lastly, a really small 48 watt hour battery that'll last you about 2 to 3 hours of normal use. Okay, so the GL752 was obviously meant for gaming, and it does a pretty good job. It's running a 960M, so you're not getting crazy graphics, but it's pretty solid. I don't love the inclusion of that DVD drive though. It's something that I would have left out if I was designing these things. It's 2015, I feel like a lot of people won't be using this drive, and it's using up space inside the laptop that could otherwise be used for batteries. The other thing I don't like is how thick it is. It's not like the thickest laptop in the world, but it's pretty thick. But I can forgive this all because of its price. It's priced at a little bit over $1,000, and that gets you into a pretty solid system that has incredible upgrade potential. It's got 2 drive spaces that you can upgrade. It's got fully upgradable RAM. It's pretty solid. So if you're looking for a 17-inch gaming laptop, this is a really good option. I'd take a look at it. That's the end of this review. Hope you guys liked it. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. It's been nice, and I'll see you guys next time.